Much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to rise today to speak on the pre-budget consultations. And, Mr. Speaker, it looks like we may be headed for some fairly tough economic times.
Shame.
We have seen what's happening in the U.S. with the subprime mortgage situation, coupled with the large accumulated debt, and there's a real possibility that there's a recession on the horizon. Now, Mr. Speaker, I couldn't help but notice that over the last couple of weeks, the spin by the Conservatives is to call Liberals spendthrift or bad fiscal managers. And it's part of this, and Mr. Speaker, it's part of their strategy, and that's fine. I understand that. But, Mr. Speaker, it must be embarrassing for Conservative members to have to do this. It can't be easy to spin this when Conservatives, the world over, are running up the debt, and Liberals are having to come in and clean up their mess. George Bush, a close friend and mentor to this Conservative government, is a case in point. The U.S. debt load is unbearable and is having a huge impact on the U.S. economy, and Canada is starting to feel the repercussions. But the reality, Mr. Speaker, is that they have no choice but to try to spin this, because their fiscal record over the years is so dismal. I know I've mentioned this in the House before, but I think it bears repeating. Mr. Speaker, it's a bit of trivia. When was the last time a Conservative government produced a surplus prior to inheriting the surpluses from the Liberal government in 2006? You would think maybe under Joe Clark?
Nope.
Under Mulroney?
Nope.
We know where that surplus has gone. Under Diefenbaker? No.
So.
It was under Sir Robert Borden in 1912.
Ooh.
1912. Was there electricity back then? I mean, this is a long time. These people are actually terrible fiscal managers. They create uncertainty in the marketplace, and this is one of the major reasons.
Shame.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals cleaned up the $42 billion yearly deficit from the previous Conservative government when they came into power in 1993 and produced 8 consecutive surpluses. They passed this incredible legacy on to this Conservative government, and in 2 short years, they have taken the best fiscal position in the G7 and the economy that was the envy of the world and brought it to the brink of deficit. Mr. Speaker, there's an old saying that continues to be true today. Tory times are tough times. I don't think this is necessarily a coincidence, Mr. Speaker. If it were, we'd have to assume that Conservative governments get into power and suddenly the economy faces a downturn or goes into a recession. What are the odds of that happening every time? I believe Conservatives create the conditions for tough times. An example of this, Mr. Speaker, the current Conservative PM's choice for Minister of Finance. We would all agree that this is a position of importance in any government and that this person must have the confidence of the people. Who does this PM reach out to fill this position? The same person who, as Provincial Finance Minister, ran for a government that had promised balanced budgets but left behind a $5.8 billion deficit in Ontario. And, Mr. Speaker, this same minister is now applying those same skills at the federal level. He produced the highest spending budget in Canadian history, with direct federal spending increasing by 8.6%. He broke a promise on income trust that cost the Canadian economy, and mostly seniors, some $25 billion.
Shame.
He brought in measures on interest deductibility that hurt Canadian companies' competitiveness and accelerated the sale of Canadian companies to foreigners. He introduced tax measures that were totally ineffective and seen more as gimmicks. And, Mr. Speaker, the example I'd like to use on that is the textbook tax credit for post-secondary students. The maximum students could get is approximately $80 a year, but in fact, most of them didn't qualify because you have to have revenue to be able to take advantage of a tax break. Besides these flagrant errors, they also have created conditions that put Canada in a very precarious position should we face this anticipated slowdown in the economy. They got rid of the $3 billion prudence or cushion that Liberals would build into every budget. They decreased personal and corporate taxes, which is a very good move on its own, but coupled with the GST cuts, it puts this government in a very close to a deficit position. This also means that they are not in a very strong position to help Canadians that may lose their jobs in the next little while in sectors such as manufacturing and forestry. These people are living through extremely difficult times. We were told that we can expect between 300,000 and 400,000 job losses in the next few years in the manufacturing industry alone. Mr. Speaker, I believe Canadians prefer a balanced approach to resolving issues, not the radical positions taken on most issues by this government. I believe Canadians want us to pay down the debt, but not put the whole surplus against the debt. A more balanced approach would be what has been done in the past is a third on the debt, a third on tax relief, because tax relief is good for Canadians, and a third on programs, Mr. Speaker, when you have crises like SARS or when certain industries are in a crisis situation. Mr. Speaker, this government has also indicated clearly that it does not believe in partnerships with Canadians. When the manufacturing industry is down, when the forestry industry is down, when the agricultural industry is down, this government is nowhere to be found. The Liberal Party believes that governments have a responsibility to partner with industry and to help Canadians get through tough times. It's a different philosophy, and I accept that, Mr. Speaker. We can't all be the same. We do have different philosophies on either side of this House. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that this government should consider helping industries like the pork industry that have come to us lately looking for temporary support through low-interest repayable loans. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. We should be there for them. Once you lose the industry, you don't get it back. And I'm not sure my colleagues on the other side of the House appreciate that. I'm not sure they understand that. Now, if you would ask me what I would like to see for the people of Saint-Boniface in the next budget, I would like to see a budget that puts people first, that shows that we can be practical on the fiscal side and still provide our social programs that Canadians are so proud of. I would like to see the Court Challenges program restored to show that we respect our multicultural, official languages, minority and disabled communities. I would like to see the ward equality restored to the mandate of Status of Women Canada and restore funding to women's groups to an adequate level. I would like to see funds for a comprehensive early learning and childcare program as proposed by our government. This program was applauded right across the country. J'aimerais aussi voir, Monsieur le Président, dans ce budget, le renouvellement et la bonification du plan d'action sur les langues officielles. Les communautés de langues officielles vivant en milieu minoritaire ont établi leurs priorités au sommet de la francophonie à Ottawa en 2007. Le temps pour les consultations est terminé. Il est temps pour un engagement sérieux de la part de ce gouvernement. I would like to see funding restored for Canada's Aboriginal community so that they can take their proper place in our society and be treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. I would like to see our government provide income support or tax relief for our seniors as well as low and middle income Canadians. I would also like to see a serious effort to curb greenhouse gases to reduce global warming. The carbon budget we are proposing seems to have been well received by experts who are knowledgeable in the field. It's something that should be considered. I would like the government to tell Canadians the truth on infrastructure funding, that the bulk of the $33 billion they announced is not new money, but funds that were committed by the previous government through gas tax transfers and the GST rebate for municipalities. The new funds are closer to $7 or $8 billion over 7 years. Let's just say it. Let's be truthful with Canadians, Mr. Speaker. I would like to see the funding for the second phase of the Red River Floodway come from the Strategic Infrastructure Fund and not from Manitoba's Infrastructure Fund as proposed by the member for Provencher. Manitoba loses $170 million with this minister's plan, and Manitoba Liberal MPs worked too hard to secure this in the first place for the first phase of the project. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to see a serious commitment to clean up Lake Winnipeg, the 10th largest freshwater lake in the world, and the pride of Manitobans. We should all be embarrassed for having allowed this lake to have deteriorated to the level we see today. So, Mr. Speaker, that's my wish list. It seems reasonable, it seems measured, and I look forward to seeing this in Budget 2008. I know Canadians will look forward to seeing this as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What a speech!